Many of us have almonds hanging out in our pantries or in the freezer. But did you know there are lots of things you can do with those almonds? My kitchen and freezer stay stocked with almonds. I use them to make almond milk, almond butter, roasted almonds, blanched almonds, almond meal using the pulp from my almond milk, and even almond flour without the skins. Welcome to Summer Bakes the World. This channel is all about baking traditional dishes from all over the world. Today, we are focusing on multi-purposing our almonds to make almond flour that is used in many international dishes like the German Stollen. There are many recipes, both savory and sweet, that call for blanched almond. Blanched almonds simply means almonds without the skin. They've been soaked to where the almond skins can be removed easily. Almond flour makes the best cookies and marzipan. I don't know about you, but I find myself often wanting to bake something right then. But I don't always have the ingredients. Did you know though, with most basic whole ingredients, you can make any processed version of them you want to use as an ingredient in recipes. I make my own mixed seasonings all the time, like taco, ranch, Montreal steak, Berber, garam masala, and many more. It's so simple to create a combined ingredient when you have a variety of individual ingredients in your cupboards. Today, we are doing just that. Why spend money and time going to the store to buy expensive blanched almonds or almond flour when you can make them at home? Assuming though you already have a bag of basic simple whole raw almonds, which I always have. It takes a bit of planning, but it's very easy and simple to do. The process has several steps that include soaking the almonds overnight, rinsing and removing the skins, and allowing them to dry for 12 hours at least. But it's actually very simple. It's just a couple minutes of your time, and then you don't have to mess with it for a long time. That's it. Here's how it goes. All you need are raw whole almonds, salt, water, and a little bit of thyme, and that can be right before you go to bed. If you make them ahead of time and freeze them, they are always ready to be used whenever you get the urge. The first step is to measure out your almonds. Every 1 ounce of whole almonds yields about a 1/4 cup of blanched almond flour. There are 2 ways you can blanch your almonds. One way is to allow them to soak overnight, and the second way is to add boiling water to them and allow them to sit for 1 minute before you remove the skins. I prefer the overnight method for a couple of reasons. One, it's just easy. Just put water in a bowl with almonds and let them sit. But also, I have difficult time digesting phytic acid, which is the enzyme found in unsoaked almonds. So salt, water, and thyme allow the phytic acid to be removed from the almonds, allowing the body to digest almonds more easily. For me, if I eat an almond without being soaked, I double over with horrible cramps within 30 minutes of eating it. But I have no issues with blanched or soaked almonds. Let's get started. Here's the soaking method. For our purposes, we were only going to soak 1 cup of almonds. So, in a small bowl, you're going to add 1 cup of raw whole almonds and 1 teaspoon of salt. And then we're going to cover them with filtered water. The almonds soak in the water and expand as they sit, so be sure to cover them up to 1 inch or so above the almonds. Leave the bowl on the counter for at least 8 hours. I usually prepare my almonds in the evening so they are ready to be deskinned in the morning. That's it for prepping them. Our almonds have been sitting overnight and are ready to be rinsed, drained, and deskinned. So take a look at our almonds. They've been sitting overnight in the water. The almonds have definitely blossomed. They have soaked in some of the water, but the phytic acid, a lot of it has been released, and the water is cloudy. If you were to change out the water every couple of hours, you wouldn't get the cloudiness here, but the cloudiness is okay. It's not going to hurt anything, but we're just going to rinse and drain them now. So all we have to do is just with a strainer or a colander, just rinse your almonds well to remove any of the cloudiness or just that stale water that's been sitting in here overnight. All right, so our almonds are ready to be deskinned, and so I do have 2 paper towels out. I've got 1 to put the almonds on, and then I have 1 to place their skins on. You can throw the skins out, or you can actually just leave them and dry them out in the oven or dehydrator, and then grind them up in a food processor, and you can use them as a topping for oatmeal or in baked cookies or whatever you want to do. But this is all you have to do. No waste, no want here. So notice how easy it is just to remove the skins. They just pop off now that they're soaked. Basically, all I'm doing is I'm squeezing the skins and then the almonds pop right out of them. That is how easy this happens. We're getting close to the end here. Quickly, I just wanted to show you the easiest way I'm finding to peel the skins is like take your forefinger and thumb and add a little friction by moving them back and forth, and when you do that, the almond pops right out. So you notice how easy that is. Our 1 cup of almonds have the separation of skin and almond. Now we need to let these dry. There are 2 ways you can let these dry. One is to put them in a dehydrator, at least the almonds. The skins we won't talk about right now, but the almonds, you'd put these in a dehydrator if you have one between 115 and 145 degrees to dry out for about 12 hours. I don't have a dehydrator and my oven does not go below 150, it's at 170. So I cannot put mine in the oven because the goal is not to roast them, but simply dry them out because we want to make flour, and flour isn't the cooked roasted almonds. So I'm actually going to leave mine here on the paper towel, and I'm going to dot them, try to remove as much of the moisture that I can physically. And I'm actually going to do the same with the skins, and I'm going to keep my skins because I don't like to waste food. So we're going to let these dry. These should take about 12 hours or so. They should not be wet at all. As soon as they're dry, you'll know you can taste one, you can break it apart, and just make sure there's no moisture left in the almonds. This could take a few hours. It could take overnight to dry completely, but we'll just check periodically, and I'll tell you exactly how long it takes mine once the process is complete. That's it. Now we just let nature run its course. Our almonds are dry and ready to be pulverized into flour. They've been sitting out for a few days, but I do have a tip. If phytic acid doesn't bother you, I would recommend boiling water, cover the almonds and let them sit for 1 minute, rinse and drain a couple of times, then proceed with deskinning them. If you do that, they will not soak all the way through, but they will dry much faster. But if you do soak them all the way through like I have, it's going to take a few days if you don't have a dehydrator. But they are ready now. I'm going to use my food processor and pulse them until ground, very much like the consistency of sand. All we need to do is put them in our food processor, and we're going to pulse until they become a fine powder. Careful not to pulse too much or you will end up with almond butter, which is not a bad thing, but that's not our goal here. All right, let's take a look. A little bit chunky, let's let it process a little bit more. All right, let's take a look here and see what we have. We let it pulse quite a bit. It looks pretty ground like flour, although it's not as finely ground as flour, but this is a great almond flour homemade version if you want to go that direction. So there you go. Let's compare. Here's my homemade version and here's the store-bought version. Let's look at the textures. So that's the homemade version here. And I have over here a store-bought version. So let's see the difference. All right, the store-bought version is definitely not as fine as regular flour. Homemade version is not quite as fine as the store-bought version, but they look pretty close. Texture looks very similar to one another. We have the store-bought version. Notice it does say super fine on the blue bag at the top versus our homemade version from Raw Nuts. Ingredients, we just have blanched almonds in the blue bag, and of course this is just raw almonds. If you want to make almond flour and you have some blanched almonds, like what I have right here, you could do the same thing. And you don't have to soak them or anything. You could just pulverize them in your food processor, and then you would get flour as well. The takeaway from this is that store-bought super fine flour is definitely going to be more fine, of course, than the homemade version. I stopped before going too far because I didn't want to make almond butter. But if you're using a recipe that calls for a combination of almond flour and something else, why not make it yourself if you have the time? You can make this, if you think you're gonna need to make something with almond flour, make it well ahead of time, like a couple weeks, and keep it in the freezer. It'll be fine for weeks on end. So it requires a little bit more effort doing it on your own. However, you've done all the processing yourself. It hasn't been done in a factory. So if you have almonds, try making almond flour from scratch instead of buying it from the store. Thanks for watching. I hope you've learned something useful. There are many more of these types of videos coming soon, so stay tuned. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and share my videos with your family and friends. I really appreciate your support. Until next time, go bake the world.